Welcome to Love Yourself Up, where it's not about perfection but progress. I'm your host, John Budd. I want to thank you and welcome you to this show. I appreciate you listening. Today is all going to be about clarity writing, how we can transform our minds and our emotions and our growth by using these skills, priority writing. So just it's not just normal task list, emotional clarity, and track what we're learning. And each one will help you to think better, to feel better, and to grow faster. So, the first one I want to talk to you about is just our priority focus. We often write out task lists, things we got to get done. And I want to share with you three different types and the one that I use the most. So, one of them is to just write out your top 5 things you must do each morning and get that done. And this gives you direction to go knock off those tasks first things in the morning. But if you're like me, unlike me, I have tasks at home and at work I have to do. So I kind of have two lists going. One's for at home and one's for at work. And this allows me to have focus when I'm at work and then focus when I'm at home. And what I do is if there's a task I got to do through the day, like during my lunch, I will pencil that in during lunch. So it's penciled in there. So one of them is just simply you write out your 6 tasks and you just the night before and you go do them. I think that's okay in general to do that. But if you have large projects to do and you feeling overwhelmed, like I have been with this basement, this bathroom, so what I did was write out a whole list of stuff. There ended up being 19 items I had to do to get this basement complete. And then I prioritized them in the order they had to be. And so I kind of look at that as like eat the frog method. You identify the biggest one or what has to be done before the others, and you list those all out. And it's just I have a list. So I have two lists. I have one on a whiteboard and I have one in my phone. And that for me, if I take breaks of the day, I look at that list and I can be thinking about these next tasks coming up. And then you just check them off and go through the list. And then there's just the other one where you just pick out which is much like the eat the frog. It's just you pick the first task and move that one forward in your life. It's kind of one task oriented. I think you just got to find the task method that works for yourself, whether that's a piece of paper, whether it's on your computer or a whiteboard. It really doesn't matter as long as you have one. One reason this works is it frees your mind up, not bright holding all those tasks in your head, but also it is written that written goals get increased to be executed by like 42% if you write them down. And so clarity and peace and progress. So once you have the clarity, you can get the peace and then you go get the progress. Then the next one is just emotional clarity and through writing. Sometimes it's good to write out your feelings and emotions, whether that's in a journal, and it could be in an email. So if somebody upset you, you write out your email and then don't send it. Just get your emotions out there. And then I would encourage this, whether it's writing letters or emails or text, to after you write it out, ask yourself, would you say this to that person face to face? Because I think sometimes people get, especially on Facebook, don't air your grievances on Facebook or social media. We really need to take those offenses right to the person and not through social media. But this helps us, when we do this when we free write, you just kind of empty your thoughts out, whether it's good or bad, then you can rewrite it and learn something about yourself. So just write it out. Don't hold it back and don't kind of hold that noise and junk in yourself. Just write it out. So there's kind of 3 methods to this. As I said, one is just stream of conscious. So you just write until your mind empties out. That can work in an email type setting. You got your unsent letters you write to people you're frustrated with. And then here's some thoughts for journaling, because I can get stuck here, like especially if I just feel like I have to write. So you can ask your question, what am I feeling right now? What hurt me today? What do I need to let go of? But also, you could ask yourself, how do you see God loving you today? How are you letting the Father love you? So those are thoughts on some prompts, and those kind of tie back into like the free will conscience. You can just write those out. And then the other thing I think that helps with doing these, especially when your feelings are hurt, it creates distance so that you can respond with wisdom and not with impulse. I have found that my wisdom is, and this is hard, that don't respond and give it a day. Because every time I respond in haste, it just seems to go wrong. I had that situation go on this week, and I regret I responded in haste. Then the next section I want to talk about is writing. You can call it learning logs, but write down what you're learning. Capture your thoughts, what you're thinking of, what you like, what you didn't like. What's the highlight of the day? What, at night you could write out what was one thing you learned today. What is one thing that you was taught today? Don't be afraid to get new skills and concepts and track your growth. Maybe if you're like me, want to eat healthier, so I write out in my journal, what I am writing. It's not really so much in a letter format. It's more in the format of today I weighed this, I drank so much water, blah, blah, blah. And listen, I've got health apps on my phone and I like them. But I seem to do better, and I think we remember better if we write them down. There is something about writing stuff down that helps. I think that if we would learn to write out our thoughts, and then when you go back and when I review my thoughts, I look at the things I learned. I divided mine up into 3 sections. You could do however you want. One of mine is more spiritually minded, things that I'm thinking about, praying about, just random thoughts that I want to think about. A lot of those are geared around uh, spirituality. I have a prayer list in here that I keep, and I update it once in a while. I also take a podcast note, so I have those thoughts for a podcast. I write them in here somewhere, and then I'm in a couple in a masterminds, and I write those notes that I find good there. And so make the journal work for you. I don't think it has to be, there are some canned ones out there, but make the journal work for you. That's what it's all about. It's all about your growth. But I think it is good to track your growth and what you're learning. So the bonus here, if you want to call it that, I've talked about gratitude a lot, but gratitude is so important because it changes our mindsets. It changes how we view things. And when we put ourselves in a place of being thankful, and it just reframes our mindset. It shifts our stress to joy. And so then you can write out 2 or 3 things you're thankful for. Focus on moments where God provided for you and people have. So think about gratitude and how it anchors your emotions before the world grabs you. So what I'm getting at is, if we don't focus on what's growing within us, the world will put so much noise into us that we are confused. It creates chaos. And it's important for me to write out these things and for me to think about when I do get feeling stress, I have a place to go. This is things that God has provided before. So it helps to lower anxiety. I just heard this today on a podcast that when you write out how God loves you, and there is so much more that happens chemically in your brain. It's been proven in studies. So once we start writing about God's love for you and how that personal expression of how God loves you, and you start writing that out, that helps build you spiritually up so we can understand some of our struggles. And then when we look at our struggles and what's going on, and the reason this works, it helps lower anxiety, it builds joy, and it rewires your brain towards positive things, whether it's spiritual or not spiritual. It does rewire our brains. So I want to talk about this. And here's some Bible verses for this. And Habakkuk 2:2 says, "Then the Lord answered me and said, write a vision, make it a plain on tablets, that he may run who reads it." So, God's telling us to write stuff down and make it plain. So put notes in there. In Psalms 62:8 says, trust in him at all times. Uh, pour out your heart before him. God is a refuge for us. So then, there again, when we write down things that God did for us, answered prayer, maybe it's unanswered prayer, maybe it's things that God has done for us, you realize that it worked out. But those are things when we do have bad times, they can be very frustrating. And so it's like this when people have sent me meaningful things, what these podcasts mean to them, sometimes I print them off and stick them in my journal here. So when I thumb through there, I can see it. And I normally have one of these a year. Um, I've got a couple I'm getting ready to bring out at the end of the year. I'm kind of waiting to get those out. And this one's falling apart and I've got it taped up. So it gets used. And I think once you start using this, and I carry it with me, I throw it in the car. I take Post-it notes for just other notes I know I don't want to write in there permanently. And it's part of this journaling and taking notes. All this is in Psalm 62, it says, pour out your heart before God. Now, listen, we can sit and pray. I think that's good, but there are some other ways that God can speak to us that when we write out stuff, and it can be very therapeutic. And I'm all for not writing stuff down in a journal and praying and just kind of verbally dumping the stuff. But I have found that when we journal, or I journal and write it down, and it doesn't have to be scripted, um, it just helps. And then Proverbs 4:7, wisdom is a principal thing. Therefore, get wisdom, and in all you're getting, get understanding. So this supports writing what you're learning, where you're growing, and it just really helps solidify in different levels of our being how we're growing. So listen, here's what I want you to do. I want you to choose one style and try it this week. Try it today and experiment for a week. See how you feel, see how it works for you. And whether you do it on a computer, in a notebook, I do believe handwriting stuff I just feel more connected. It's just something I like. I love technology, but there's something about writing it down. It helps me remember it. So I want to say this. If you enjoy these podcasts, would you please subscribe? Please hit the like button and share this episode out. Consider joining the newsletter, which mostly right now is just some thoughts of these shows. Sometimes in the future, I have other plans for these newsletters to be tools for growth. I'm not sure where that's going to go yet, but consider joining the newsletter. You can just go to levelyourselfup.com and you'll see join the newsletter on the page. And don't be afraid to email me and submit me questions or thoughts for this next episode. So that's it. That's what I wanted to share with you today about writing and how important it is to write out your notes of tasks to get them done and get them off your plate. It frees up your mind. I think the importance of journaling and then writing out emails. So I hope you appreciate this episode. I sure appreciate you guys. And so you be blessed, my friends. God bless.